Hey y'all, welcome to Cornbread and Roses. I'm one of your hosts, Austin, and your friendly neighborhood organizer. I'm here with Jason.
Hello,
Say hi,
comrades.
Jason. All right, and we got a guest tonight, Tahira from the Huntsville Bail Fund, and we're talking about Alabama's Byzantine judicial system. Uh, yeah, Tahira, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do with the Huntsville Bail Fund?
Hi, so I'm Tahira Osborne. I'm the co-founder of Huntsville Bail Fund, which is the only bail fund currently operating in Alabama. We've been operating for over 4 years. We're coming up on our 5th anniversary this June. And so this has been a 4.5 year process of really learning on the job what it's like for people who are facing arrest and detention in North Alabama.
Wow, that's like I'm real shocked that y'all are the only bail fund in Alabama. Like, is there like any talks with any other areas in Alabama about like getting a bail fund started with them or doing a statewide bail fund or anything like that?
Well, that's a great question. So there are previously 2 formal bail funds that were also operating in the state of Alabama, Tuscaloosa Bailout and Montgomery Bailout Fund in Tuscaloosa and Montgomery. And we actually used to operate like a statewide organizing group that had representation from actually 7 different cities in Alabama. Unfortunately, the political landscape for doing bail work has gotten really hostile, particularly like on the national stage. And unfortunately, it is like really under-resourced work. And so in some ways, we're sort of like the last bail fund standing right now. And we are like in this place of like, what does that mean for us?
That's highly unfortunate. I wonder who all these folks are at the national level that need, I don't know, a little talking to, it sounds like.
Well, Georgia and Texas have both passed legislation actually banning bail funds in their states. And we're talking about charitable bail funds, right, that are not operating as for-profit bonding agencies, but are just operating to get poor folks out of jail.
Yeah, I was reading about the Stop Cop City movement a little bit, and they were going after bail funds using like RICO laws and anti-racketeering laws.
Yeah, in fact, the 3 original members of Atlanta Solidarity Fund just had their charges dropped this past September. And they were actually charged with like domestic terrorism related charges. It was a pretty deep investigation over literally the purchase of some yard signs. That's actually what kickstarted that whole investigation in Georgia. Was this dispute over some yard signs related to Stop Cop City messaging.
Well, it seems like everybody's a terrorist nowadays. Yeah, that's not shocking, disappointing for sure, but not shocking at all. So y'all been around about 4 years or so. Like, how many people, give or take, have y'all helped?
So we've bailed out over 60 individuals over the last 4.5 years. And we've actually been able to help even more than that, about 100 people with fines and fees related to their cases, which can pretty often have by itself pretty disastrous effects. Carceral debt is a huge moneymaker for municipalities and counties. And it's a great way to get people locked into the system. So once they have this carceral debt, if they're not able to pay it off or they miss payments on it, that's a pretext to arrest them again and detain them again. It can start the clock over, right, on owing these fines and fees, because you're also getting charged for the cost of your detention while you're in detention. So it's like really kind of designed to be this trap for people. And it's been great to be in a position where we can really lift that burden for people, because it can make a huge difference, right? Like if you're having to come up with $100 a month because you're on color code, and you never know day to day when your color might get called, and you've got to go pay $100 for this drug test. That can be really disastrous for a family. To say nothing of like all of the costs with missed work, or like losing childcare, or all of the sort of secondary fallout from that.
What does it mean to be on color code?
Oh, so this is for people who are on probation, or are in like pretrial detention services, or on diversion programs, where you can be like randomly drug tested at any time. We use a lot of private like probation management companies in Alabama. So these are third-party contractors who are responsible for doing the monitoring. People have to pay like ongoing monitoring fees just for being in the program, on top of having to pay. So if you get called in for like a random drug test, which, every day there's like a color that they'll call, and it may or may not be your color that day. So you never know day to day or week to week when you might be called upon to show up. And you literally have to show up the next day with your money in hand to pay for that test and take that random drug test. So that's just like one example of the kinds of fines that people have to deal with, even like during, while waiting for trial.
How much does a drug test cost?
It depends on the county, and I think it depends on the program, but average costs are like several $100s a month, $200-$300 a month is what people report to us most of the time.
Jeez Louise.
So it's like you get robbed once or twice a week.
Yeah. And that's grocery money, right? That's gas money to get back and forth to work.
How much do they charge for folks? You said they charge if you're in detention, you're incarcerated, they charge you?
Yeah. So if you are detained pre-trial and you serve is there something just appeared on my screen that surprised me? What was the question?
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, those are just people in the comments. Yeah, we were asking how much it costs when you're incarcerated.
When you're incarcerated, the average I think is about $70 a day.
Damn.
They're like, yeah, so that's like the fines that are tacked on once your case is resolved. They will like literally charge you for the cost of having detained you. They nickel and dime you every single way. And we haven't even talked about like how they fund indigent defense in Alabama. So indigent defense or public defense for people who cannot afford to pay for their own attorney, which is, most people who are locked up in jail, if you can't afford your bail, then you probably cannot afford an attorney, right?
Yeah.
Those people. So that service is funded in Alabama by something called the Fair Trial Tax, which is a tax that is only assessed on people accused of crimes. So like we actually depend on arresting people and assessing fines in order to provide the service of public defense.
Accused, not convicted, accused.
Accused. Because we've seen in many cases where people will have charges dropped, or a prosecutor will decide not to prosecute because there's not enough evidence to do so. And people still owe those fines and fees. People still owe court fees, even when the case comes out in their favor.
And does the bail fund help with that?
Yeah. So that most of our bail clients, we end up helping with their fines and fees because that's a side effect of posting bond in Alabama is fines and fees are usually taken out of bond amounts. So like you never truly get like all the money back. So we anticipate when we bail someone out that those costs will be incurred. And then we also do operate an aid program on top of that.
All right, so you can get arrested for something and be innocent of it, can't afford your bail, so you sit in jail, you accuse.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Well, he's frozen.
Am I back?
You're back. You're
Okay.
in jail. You've been accused of a crime. That's where we lost you.
Oh, and we have one of our
Hey,
other
Robert.
hosts.
So Robert's actually a comrade from Gadsden who was involved in our statewide coalition for a while. It's good to see you, Robert.
It's great seeing you as always, Tara. How have you been as of late?
You know, we keep on trucking. We're still here.
Completely understandable. So, I won't hold things up, but yeah, one of the things me and Tahir worked on was essentially there was a program out of, if I remember correctly, it was Vera. And from that, we were able to do some data statistics on the arrests rates during off seasons and during election years. And we saw that there was a correlation between specifically when attorneys were running for office, that there were more people being arrested. And even after the fact, those same people, when the charges were dropped, their life was negatively affected by that. And also later on in that same collaboration, I was able to put together a mini documentary talking to formerly incarcerated citizens of my city and how specifically they didn't feel that the so-called Department of Corrections actually corrected anything. None of them felt that coming out of the current system that we have right now, that their life was made better by it.
Yeah, it sounds like a grift, to be honest. And so you can get arrested, you can be innocent, you can't post bail, you sit there and accrue fund or accrue debt staying in the jail, and you're looking at like a month. That's close to $1,000 if you're locked up for a month and they let you go.
Mm-hmm.
And you've lost your job.
Oh, yeah. So, no call, no show 2 days in a row, you've lost your job in most instances. Even the first time is a reason to let you go with a lot of low-wage, blue-collar jobs, right? Hard labor jobs, where you're a worker that's seen as disposable in the first place. So now you're stuck in jail. If you're a parent, who knows what's happened to your kids, right? Especially if you had them with you while you were arrested. If you are a low-wage worker, you're more likely to operate on a cash basis. If you have a bunch of cash with you and you get arrested, that's subject to civil asset forfeiture, and they don't need to find you guilty to keep that money. So if you're rolling around and it's, the day after payday and you've got rent in your pocket and you get arrested and your kids are in the back seat, that's it. Your life is ruined. Right? You've lost custody of your kids. You've lost your rent money. You've lost your job. You've lost your health insurance if you had it. And so even if you're lucky enough to get out 3-4 days later, how do you pick up the pieces?
That's sickening. Yeah.
And it all happens before you're ever found guilty, right? Before you're ever found guilty. And by that point, once you get in front of the judge, it feels pretty hopeless to a lot of people.
Just hearing it makes you feel hopeless. Like it could be a tail light and then something escalates and you're fucked, you know.
Well, in Alabama, a broken taillight is an arrestable offense. Having an expired tag is an arrestable offense. Existing on public property right now can be considered an arrestable offense. With HB 2024 last year, they can arrest you just for being on public property.
Yeah, HB 2024. Can you remind us as to what it's stated?
So it's an update of Alabama's vagrancy law, which actually removes from our panhandling legislation the stipulation that someone must be actively soliciting to be considered panhandling. So if you are an unhoused person or a poor person and you are on public property, and they even think that you're there and you're taking up space and you look wrong, that's a reason to arrest you. They can decide, well, you're a panhandler because you're poor and you're here, even if they don't have you actually soliciting, even if you don't have a sign, even if you're just trying to exist, right? That's enough of a pretext to arrest you. And we see that actually a lot, specifically with Madison County Jail, is that it really exists to warehouse unhoused people.
Somebody's already unhoused. They ain't got no. And today I was leaving Walmart and I saw somebody. I didn't have nothing to give them today, and there's a spot in town that I try to keep a couple bucks or some water or something with me, and roll down the window and hook somebody up. But like, what do they then do with these folks that can't pay the bail? They can't pay the all the fees that are accrued. They're already unhoused. Like, what happens to them?
So a lot of them will linger in jail for months. We see that. I mean, we've seen people incarcerated for significant lengths of time on really minor charges. And I would actually like to point out that in 2024, so far this year, over half of the arrests in Madison County Jail have either been for public order offenses or for traffic.
Over 50% traffic tickets.
Over half of all arrests this year have either been for public order infractions or for traffic infractions.
So that's just living and trying to
exist.
Live. Oh man. So with all that being said, and what's a good thing that we can do? Like, what's something that people can take action about these things?
So we have piloted a court observation program, and I feel like that has been a really powerful way to start holding the system accountable. So I would say, like, go to one of these public hearings and sit down and see for yourself how the courts operate and what it's like for people who are moving through it. So in Huntsville Municipal Court, which is the start of our pilot, the average length of trial is actually under 2 minutes. So can you imagine, and it really is eye-opening. You just have to sit through one of these sessions and see what a 2-minute trial looks like, and see what it feels like.
It sounds so just like Kafka-esque. Before we started this, I couldn't get my mind off Kafka, and reading through all the court system stuff and hearing you talk. It definitely sounds system. The pilot program you got, are you looking for volunteers for that, or like what time does a municipal court, when do they usually have hearings where people can go watch?
So the municipal court has hearings from 8 in the morning to some dockets start at 5 or 6 at night. Actually, we have the largest and busiest municipal court in the state of Alabama. A dubious accolade.
Number one, roll tide, roll tide.
So we started, we did our first staff hire actually this year. And we're hoping to be able to expand and onboard volunteers starting in 2025. So that's been really exciting for us. And I do feel like that's the path forward, is doing this kind of self-education, is doing this organizing work, and really connecting with the community so that we know, right? Something that's so fundamental to the way incarceration works, not just in Alabama, I think nationwide, this is true, is that it's a very isolating experience. It's really designed to make you feel, whether you are the person arrested or whether you're someone on the outside trying to support them, that you're totally alone, right? That there's no one to help you, that you are really a slave to the system, right? Like you have no agency, you have no control. And the way that we start to break out of that is by finding each other and connecting with each other. That's how we build power.
Yeah. You tell me, is the local news, they ever engaged you, or have you brought, have you thought about bringing like this week's list of 2-minute trials to them?
Well, it's been hard to get local news attention, partly because so much of the way the system operates is just business as usual. I mean, that's really something that we've had to contend with in doing this work. In 2020, so Huntsville Bail Fund started as a fundraiser because 24 people were arrested at Black Lives Matter protest here in Huntsville. And we needed to do something to get those folks out of jail, right? And through that experience, connecting with those 24 people, hearing the stories of their experiences in jail sounded like emergencies. And as we learned more, we came to realize that nobody cares because it is just business as usual. Like, yeah, the jail is full of COVID sufferers. What's new? We're talking June of 2020. And they're putting people shoulder to shoulder and holding and taking away everybody's face masks, right? Zero precautions because they're okay with people dying in jail. Once a person has landed in jail, to answer your question about, what happens to the homeless person once they're in there, they're expected to die in there.
Oh yeah, something like 1 prisoner every day dies in Alabama prisons. There's a really good article in AP News today about the Alabama prison system that talks about the way that prisoners are forced to work for-profit companies like Burger King and others. And it talks about how dangerous the Alabama prisons are. And I think it mentions offhand.
Yeah. So Alabama has the dubious distinction of being the deadliest prison system in the nation, which my research suggests means that we actually have one of the deadliest prison systems in the world.
Yeah. I mean, that's the logic, right?
If someone can find me statistics on a deadlier prison somewhere else in the world, I would, stand to be corrected.
So from this article, last year and in the first 6 months of 2024, an Alabama inmate died behind bars nearly every day, a rate 5 times the national average.
And actually, from our own research, we know that several detention facilities around the state, including Madison County Jail, are not complying with the Death in Custody Reporting Act, which is a federal act designed, geared towards getting hard numbers on how many people are facing illness or death in jail every year. But there's no mechanism to really enforce like the requirement that they participate, so they don't. We see that also with many Huntsville area agencies refusing to do hate crime reporting. And that seems to be a common MO of the Alabama government, is just, if we don't write it down, then we never say we have to know, right? We don't collect those statistics so that we never actually have to face that reality.
Hey, if we don't test, it disappears.
Right.
Well, I have so many more questions, and I really think I'd really like to have you on again. Actually, those statistics that Robert brought up with the attorneys increasing prosecutions. Was it arrests or prosecutions, or I would kind of assume both? When
It was specifically both. There was a repeatable pattern of a 4-year spike every 4 years. So the last spike was in 2022, and the next spike will probably be in 2026. There are individual smaller spikes, but the bigger spikes are normally in your Alabama large electoral year, sadly, in part because some people build their campaign on a campaign of fear and how many bodies they can stack underneath them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and these jails are extremely lucrative, right? Etowah being, I think, a prime example. We all know what's happened with the jail there. Robert, I don't know if you want to talk about that, the sheriff pocketing funds.
Yeah, so the last sheriff we had found a loophole that goes back to, actually, you know what? Just to be 100% clear, if there ever is anyone who ever says, well, you know this thing from the 1800s, dude, stop talking. You don't want to know whatever effect that's about to be. So the sheriff was like, there's this thing from the 1800s that just says the sheriff can keep whatever extra money's left over, because the sheriff back then was the person actually housing the inmates at his own house. Mm-hmm. That's changed since, but the loophole's still there. So the sheriff would say, hey, you know what? There's about $500,000 we use on food. What if I just cut down the value of the food and then pocket whatever difference I can? Because legally, sheriff can do that. And he pocketed so much, he was able to buy himself $1.2 or $1.3 million beachside home. People were very mad about that. Mm-hmm. He was removed from office in a primary. They didn't, if I remember correctly, 100% patch that problem, though. Now it's the sheriff personally can't take the funds, but the sheriff can redistribute it still.
Yeah.
Which is, sorry, you can go.
No, yeah, that's just, you're absolutely right. So they removed the stipulation that sheriffs can personally pocket the funds, but it still can get redistributed within the rest of the sheriff's budget. Which is another thing that people don't know, and I would like to highlight. Between the sheriff and the county jail, very often, and this is true nationwide, sheriffs and jails make up as much as half or more of a county's budget. That's true in Madison, I can say. The jail makes up 24% of the county budget, and between that and the sheriff's budget, Sheriff Kevin Turner controls more than half. I think it's like 52% of the Madison County budget. And that's
just insane.
That's something to know, I think, in all of this, that these are local players. And these are a lot of elected positions that run unopposed.
I'll also say that some of it is what I would consider, I don't have a really good name for it, but essentially there are certain political positions that go unopposed because people who have the same thought process as many that are on the platform with us right now don't believe that they should get involved. Because one of the things that did happen with the Etrigan situation was they didn't have any opposition because most people in the area just said, look, it's bad what happened with Etchikin, but I don't think that my family would be okay if I became the county cop. So we're going to leave it to the next guy. What could possibly go wrong? And then the whole ICE situation was still there prevalently after.
Yeah, Robert, I would actually love to know, do you have any insight to what Etowah Detention Facility is looking like now that they've ended the ICE contract? Because my impression is that they've managed to still essentially keep the jail full.
It is complicated. So they are essentially keeping the jail full. They did lose the contract in part because just Etowah County in general was just on a lot of people's bad side and was just a really good target to say, we clean the streets. Don't look over there, though. So
that was a Biden administration decision, wasn't it? And they went out of their way to make that decision and end that contract.
yes.
Yeah.
At the same time that they were doing stuff up over in Palestine, being specifically, we cleaned up this one thing. Now don't look over there. But it is a little bit better. But at the same time, there are other issues. There have been people who have had lackadaisical medical care. There's actually housing issues at the moment because there's a dispute between the county and the city. The city, I'm not 100% sure what's going on there, but the city has stopped their contract with the county jail, and now city prisoners are being transferred all the way down to Jacksonville, if I remember correctly, to specifically jail them over there. The mayor says that it's just cheaper, but the way that contract was ended was a little wonky.
Yeah. And I was going to say, speaking of ICE, I mean, upcoming, we have, in theory, they're going to start. There's 2 bills pre-filed in the legislature about quote illegal aliens. And we talked about that a little last week. But what do you see happening with immigrants in the state? And I mean, if already our jails are full and we're putting people up for traffic tickets, what's going to happen in your opinion?
Jail expansions.
We do have the biggest jail in the world coming up. Number 1 again.
The K Ivy Correctional Facility. It's actually
Yes.
I will say that at the end of the day, the tactics evolve to better assuage whatever is the people in power, frankly. Because even the prison expansion that we saw in the last 10 to 30 years was only an expansion off the tactic that was used in Birmingham, where civil rights activists know, hey, we know exactly how many beds you have in this jail. We're going to have many of our members purposely arrested, and we're going to bankrupt your jail. That or you're going to let every single person free. Ever since then, they evolved that tactic into now expanding it to the point that they can 100% absorb whatever attempts anyone makes at a protest. Further, going even further beyond that with these multiple cop cities.
Yeah, earlier in the 1930s, I think the IWW had a lot of success in Seattle and other places where they were able to clog the jails up so that no one else could be arrested. But by the 60s, during the civil rights era, when Martin Luther King Jr. tried similar tactics, Alabama was able to make its jail bottomless by shipping prisoners out to other cities. So they've largely neutralized that tactic by saying, okay, we'll send you off somewhere else. We'll find a jail for you.
And so they're shipping folks out. They'll ship folks out of state. So you're supposed to have court in Alabama, but you're in Ohio or some shit.
That tends to happen, especially with federal arrestees who are facing federal charges. They can be shipped all over the country. We see that less frequently with state level charges.
I will also say there are other extenuating circumstances that can happen internally of Alabama, because one of the issues that's popped up with people I know, including my own father, is someone will catch a failure to appear charge even if they're already incarcerated in another county.
We see that a lot.
Which is ridiculous on like multiple fronts, because at the end of the day, it's really simple. Hey, buddy, just letting you know you have a court case coming up. You're automatically just going to, not appear because we're probably not going to be able to get you there in time. So your options are to either prison heist your way out of here or catch another charge. And like, that's not a good system.
There was an article about that in AL.com today.
Mm-hmm.
And I volunteer in Decatur at a center for the unhoused. And failure to appear is one of the most common warrants that people have out. And yeah, like they get into the system, they're in prison, they're somewhere else, and they're still expected to appear on these other things. They have no means to get over there, and so they catch FTAs.
What's especially insulting is that we see in Huntsville people catching FTAs in municipal court when the municipal court is literally in the same building as the jail.
Wow.
They're literally there in the building.
That is, I have to say it again, Kafka-esque. It looks like we lost Robert, unfortunately. But I think before we've been talking almost 40 minutes now, and we ain't even touched the tip of the iceberg of stuff.
Oh yeah, we haven't even talked about what happens if you actually get convicted and you go into Alabama's dangerous prisons,
right?
Where you're made to work. Alabama takes 40% of the wages off the top. You have to pay for your laundry fees. You have to pay for your transportation fees.
You have to pay for your food if you want edible food.
I've seen that they get paid between 10 and 50 cents.
It winds up being low. If you complain, you're punished. So, like I said, AP News released a really good article today about Alabama's prison systems. That's really worth reading.
If you take I got a little statistics from 2013 fiscal year. The court system, Alabama court system, took in $515 million in fines and distributed, and they're supposed to distribute part of it to the general fund. In this case, it's $70 million to the state general fund, $14.5 million to victims, $133 million to businesses and individuals, which I don't know what the hell that meant. $91.5 million to the executive branch, and $170.5 million to child support. But if you take that, and I'm sure it's grown in 10 years, and you take the labor of incarcerated folks and all the other funding the prisons just outright and whatever, this is billions of dollars that the state, the taxpayer, is burdened with, for one, and it's used as a cudgel to beat people down and to give people death sentences without even giving them death sentences,
Well, it's death by 1,000 cuts, right?
Yeah.
We didn't actually sentence you to life. We just sentenced you to 18 months in jail, which is effectively the same thing.
Yeah. The death of the 1,000 cuts works both ways, though, folks. Just, start chipping away.
It's a perfect system specifically to otherize people.
Yeah. Because then you also lose your right to vote in a lot of cases.
Well, and people give up too because they don't know the process if they can get their rights back. So Alabama has made some recent legal changes to allow people who are not convicted of crimes of moral turpitude, is the phrase, can apply to have their rights reinstated and then register to vote. But it is a process, again, a Byzantine process, and you have to know it. You have to have someone who's able to support you and navigate through it. You even have to know it's an option in the first place, right? Most people
You got to
just
have money.
oh, I have lost my right to vote. Why would I even bother?
Yeah. Disenfranchisement, and I know all that costs money too. And the person who ended up in that position in the first place probably didn't have money to begin with, because you definitely, I definitely don't really hear rich folks having these problems.
Well, rich folks can afford to renew the tag before it expires, right?
Yeah.
You know, these are privilege-based taxes, essentially.
Absolutely. There should be a sliding scale. If you're in a certain tax bracket, we get to 100x your fine.
I think Finland does that.
Oh, do they?
If I remember correctly, I think Finland has like sliding scales for like traffic tickets. So if you get popped for a speeding ticket, you're going to pay more if you're earning six figures than if you earn less. So I think it's Finland.
That sounds all right to me. If we're gonna have that shit, it might as well be equitably done across all tax brackets.
Yes, in Finland, speeding tickets are linked to your income. Drivers can be fined up to 175% of their weekly income on a sliding scale depending on the severity of the offense.
I'm glad I drive in the slow lane all the time. I definitely can't afford no tickets, especially with Christmas time being around. Oh yeah, happy Christmas, folks. Isn't this such a lovely Christmas time subject? But I do want to get in before we start running too long on just like the basic structure and how judges are selected or elected or whatnot. So find some leather and bite it, y'all. Let's see here. There we go. I'll be a professional at this. Oh, by the way, none of this is legal advice, y'all. We probably should have said that at the very beginning, but none of this is legal advice. So take that, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Which is also not legal advice.
Which is also not legal advice as well. Don't put anything in your pipe and smoke it.
This is at all not supported by Better Call Saul.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. I need to finish that series. I think I only made it to like season 3. But yeah. Anyway, I diverge. I digress. Here we got the states of Alabama courts, state courts of Alabama, something like that. And Tahira, you operate down here like around the municipal district.
Yes. So we operate primarily at the municipal and district level and that's mostly because we're a small fund. Bails in Alabama can range from $300 for a violation to $1.5 million if you're caught for drug trafficking and they decide to really stick it to you. And it's been an interesting process because a lot of people who are cycling through our jails are cycling through these municipal courts, which, as you can see, are huge in number.
Yeah.
And for some municipalities are actually their prime source of revenue.
Yeah, there are definitely, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Uh-oh. So yeah.
Yeah, they pull you over on the highway, even on the interstate or whatever, even though they're a city off the highway or interstate. I mean, but I've caught a ticket like that before. In the district courts, is that where if the sheriff gets you?
So that's actually a great question.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Do you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. Go ahead.
So there's what we call jurisdictional purview, right? So municipal courts are to enforce municipal level ordinances. So your violations, sometimes your minor misdemeanors, that can look like third degree drug possession. That can look like third degree domestic violence if you're really wanting to reach for some criminal charges. So those are offenses that are usually not subject to long bouts of incarceration, these charges. Misdemeanors and then felonies usually will first pass through district court. Each district in Alabama roughly corresponds to a county. District judges and the district clerk, who is the official record keeper, are elected positions. And then the circuit court does felonies and then appeals cases. So you may first have a trial in municipal court. If you decide to appeal it, you have a right to a direct appeal to the circuit court.
And these judges are yeah. And these judges are elected for 6-year terms.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no limit on the number of terms they can serve.
There is no limit. And most of these positions in Alabama, I think the majority of them run unopposed.
Yes, and are seated by Republicans. I think the one, when you look at the actual circuit court numbers, I think there's like hundreds of Democratic judges, but they're centered mostly in the district that includes Shelby County, which is not district, but the circuit 18 for Shelby County and 10 for Jefferson County. So and then outside of that area, the elected judges are mostly Republicans running unopposed, who run on tough on crime policies and get elected that way.
And then they also work to elect their buddies, the district attorneys that are also elected positions.
All right.
And very curiously, Alabama has a constitutional amendment that says if you're older than 70, you can't run for most judgeships.
Mm-hmm.
So,
funnily enough, that's literally just a Roy Moore issue.
Yeah, that was like literally about Roy Moore.
Really?
Yeah, that was literally to keep Roy Moore out of office.
Wow. So you can run as many times as you like. There's no restriction on that. The only requirement is you have to be younger than 70.
Yeah, well, the issue there was really simple. Someone made the easy calculation of, let's say someone, a former senator who has a law degree wants to run for Supreme Court against, someone they already beat. That could potentially flip a lot of situations legally, and that just had to get handled. Also, he has explicitly cost the state of Alabama money due to multiple shenanigans around the, if I remember correctly, it was the 10 Commandments, because repeatedly he was aggressive about trying to do that, and it was cost them money in legal fees, among other things. Although Alabama, if I had to guess, is in the top 30 legal fees because we're well known for not following laws.
So yeah, the current Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was recently term limited that way because he turned 70 while in office. So he's 73 now. So he couldn't run for the Chief Justice slot again. So there was an election to fill that slot, which was won handily by the Republican. And I forget her name, Sarah Stewart.
Maybe. Tell me, the municipal courts, aren't they appointed positions?
Yeah, so municipal judges are appointed. I think exclusive. Well, it depends on the municipality. I know in Huntsville they're appointed by the mayor,
Right.
who has like exclusive purview. I'm not sure if that's like an across the board in Alabama thing. I don't know enough about other municipal courts.
I think it depends on a case by case basis because if I remember correctly, in Gadsden, our municipal court is appointed by the mayor, but then approved by the city council,
City council.
which is
So-
also really important to make sure you have some ear to the ground on your local elections because there could be a time you get some traffic ticket and your fate may be decided on the last mayoral election.
So the probate courts, they look over our elections, but something I discovered, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that you don't have to have a law degree to be a probate judge.
That's true. They don't do trials in probate court. So probate covers elections and then like real property.
Wills and estates.
Right. Wills and estates, real property. They keep, deeds on record, things like that.
Marriage.
They also handle name changes. So
They
if
also-
you're trans, you'll have to deal with a probate judge.
They will deal with name changes. They also deal with licensing. And that like multiple types of licensing, not just driver's licenses.
So any young folks out there want to run for? You don't even you don't even need a law degree. You just need to be good at politics.
Likewise, to run for sheriff, you don't have to have any legal education or any law enforcement experience.
So theoretically, somebody could run for the sheriff's office and then shut it down.
I mean,
Depending on who you are, the deputies may quit. There have been towns in Alabama where I'm getting an echo. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's coming from me or what.
It sounds fixed.
Yeah, but I was reading recently in Alabama about a town where a black mayor gets elected and all of the city police officers with resigned, and then
I saw one of those. Was it in Alabama? I thought it was like up north somewhere.
I think it was Tarrant, Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Let me double check.
Well, so all we got to do is elect black mayors to abolish the police system.
I don't know how well that's working out for Birmingham.
Fair point. That's a fair point.
Yeah, I don't know how that's working out for Clarence Thomas either.
It's working out great for Clarence Thomas. He laughs all the way to Harlan. What's
The
his
RV.
name?
He laughs all the way to the RV
That's right.
as he drives through the drive-through to the bank. Oh, well, that thing won't fit, but he'd probably try it anyway, dumbass. All right.
Harlan Crow. So yeah, Clarence
Harlan
Thomas
Crow
has a billionaire buddy named Harlan Crow who gives him all kinds of freebies and takes him on all kinds of trips and all kinds of other things. There's actually a recently released Senate report about it, but nothing's likely to happen because in a few weeks the Republicans are going to take over the federal Senate.
Yeah.
Also, there is no enforceable action you can take on a Supreme Court member outside of the Supreme Court, specifically curtailing themselves, and that's never going to happen. Literally, that has not happened going all the way back to Madison v. Marbury v. Madison. Literally, when they gave themselves Supreme Court jurisdiction. So,
yeah. And he ain't the only one. Thomas ain't the only one in that little Harlan Crow club. But we got the probate court, we got the municipal court, and we got the district court, which I found interesting. These are all what they call bench trials. So it's the judge who makes any and all decisions at the district courts. And there's like 67 districts, but there's 106 or so judges, and they're elected and they got no term limits.
And they have like wide discretion in how they choose to operate their courtrooms. So you can see really significant variances judge to judge, courtroom to courtroom, even within the same districts. You can see very different outcomes. And then the presiding judge also gets to decide what indigent defense looks like in their district. So they are the ones who get to decide whether public defense is an appointment system with private practice attorneys, or if there's actually a dedicated public defender's office that's staffed by employees.
So this isn't even like indigent defense isn't standardized across the state at all.
That's correct.
It's a whimsical display on the judge's part.
It's whatever your county decides.
It's a vibe.
Hooked up.
It's a vibe. It's a total vibe.
And it's all relationships based, as far as I can tell, which makes it interesting to navigate and like start poking and asking questions about.
So I guess you play golf now. Or
that's also one of.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Robert.
Yeah, some of that is literally going to play golf, but also that's some of the scary part about all of this is because a part of the reason why some people remain unchallenged in certain areas is, number one, you have to, in most cases, if I remember correctly, you have to be a card-carrying lawyer for 3 years before you can become a judge or run for judicial office, unless you're appointed. And even then, I think that's still a requirement. And then number two, let's say you've already become a lawyer. You're probably $100,000 or more in debt just from the law degree, not your bachelor's. You then start practicing under someone else more than likely. And you now are, your ability to retain a job will sometimes involve dealing with judicial courts, judges. So more than likely, you're not going to run against the guy who is the main person you see at the judicial level. You may run against someone in a separate district or in a different bracket, but a lot of lawyers are scared that specifically, if I piss off this judge by running against him and losing, until that judge leaves office, they'll just be like, hey, guess what? I think that this needs to be handled differently. Have fun with that. But I'm going to make the most harsh, hostile thing towards you. And I have the purview to do it partly because unless you can prove it without a doubt, we're both lawyers. So there's a very good chance you're not going to be able to actually prove it because I'm still operating the laws you are. The difference is I have the power. So a lot of people are very scared about the real loss of job and livelihood that would happen if they challenge the system.
Mm-hmm. A very good old boy system. You know, the jobs are very much network based, is from my experience. So it goes along logically that it's very similar for lawyers. So sounds like a judge can, like if you have a good relationship with a judge, like it can make your law career too, if somehow, and jump you from what are they, junior partners or associates when they start, and then to get to a partnership. That's like, how does that work there? It sounds like law firms are almost co-ops in a manner, except that only the partners
Yes, you are correct. Most law offices do operate as partnerships, particularly here in Alabama, and they have like an equity stake in the law practice. And part of like going up the ranks is gaining greater equity in the business.
Interesting. So we got the next little level is our circuit courts. It says here we got 41 circuits, which sounds about almost two counties per circuit or so. And it's where trials actually occur. And there's like 148 judges or so at the circuit level.
Yeah, they automatically get jurisdiction over felony cases.
Mm-hmm.
So if you catch a felony case,
you're going to circuit court. Yeah,
you're going to the circuit court.
Also, if you assert your right to a jury trial, you're going to circuit court.
Okay.
If you've had a case in municipal court, you can decide to do a direct appeal to circuit court. I think I already mentioned that.
It says here they see about 225,000 cases a year, which that sounds like impossible.
Which you do have to remember, that's both civil and criminal cases.
I was just about to make that point.
So civil cases would also include like family law, coming back to like real estate, wills, transfers of real property,
lawsuits that involve more than $10,000,
white collar crime, that kind of thing.
So the circuit court hears those cases. So the district courts also hear civil cases.
Yes.
And there is the small claims court is part of the district court. So if it's less than $3,000, if you're suing somebody over less than $3,000, you'll go to a special sub branch of the district court called small claims court. So if it's between $3,000 and $10,000, you're suing somebody for, it's district court, and if it's more than $10,000, it's the circuit court. And then the appellate courts are separated for whatever reason. So the civil appeal, like if it's if you have a civil case, you go and you're appealing a decision that was made, you go to the Court of Civil Appeals. And if you have a criminal decision that you're appealing, it goes to the Court of Criminal Appeals.
And I'm guessing the circuit court, the same indigent rules so it's another vibe system.
It's actually, so the indigent defense system between district and circuit court is actually shared. They're connected. Because the cases usually will like cycle through one and then the next. But it is still like vibes based. Yeah, it's all like what that person in charge decides they want their little fiefdom to look like.
There sounds like there's a lot of room for improvement for our court system. A lot of room for improvement, folks. Start thinking out there. Thinking how you can do that. The next
one, agree to run for office.
Hey, I was going to ask you, how many lefty lawyers do you see out there?
I actually, like, this is a standing question for me. Like, where are the movement lawyers? Because they're not here in North Alabama, that's for sure.
They're nowhere near Gadsden either, for the most part. I will say, I'm trying to hopefully within the next 3 years, I'll have my bachelor's degree and I'll be working on my LSAT so I can get into law school. But that's years away for me. So your best bet is looking into Birmingham and Montgomery, frankly. But even then, I'm pretty sure one or multiple of us would have heard about some people by now, if that was the case, that they're easily accessible.
Well, I don't want to diminish that there are some people in the state who are doing really good work. I actually want to, in reference to HB 24, Southern Poverty Law Center is actually suing the city of Montgomery and the state of Alabama over their panhandling ordinance. And a colleague of ours, Micah West, is doing great work leading that lawsuit. There are some, but they are like overworked and under-resourced. We're just this year, Southern Poverty Law Center, the same organization, fired 20% of their staff, right? We're not, let's be serious.
Yeah. That case is being heard now in the 11th Court of Appeals at the federal level in Georgia. Against Alabama's anti-panhandling law. I mean, so federal judges are hearing arguments against it with the possibility that it could be declared unconstitutional. Now, the current federal Supreme Court, I think is likely to conclude that anti-panhandling bills are wonderful. But who knows? I mean, I've been surprised before. Courts have consistently held that panhandling is part of free speech.
Yeah.
So
and, I know they're doing some stuff for unhoused, some laws in Kentucky. I swear they basically criminalized being unhoused up there as well, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court upheld that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where basically Tennessee made it a crime to camp on public property, and the Supreme Court upheld it.
And then
it's a felony.
Was it Seattle's law that came up this year in SCOTUS? Sleeping in public has been criminalized up there.
Man, you can't take a nap on a bench. Man.
And actually, even here in Alabama, you can be arrested for sleeping in your car. Sleeping in your vehicle is an arrestable offense here in Huntsville.
So somebody could be on their lunch break sleeping in their car and get done up.
I mean, if the officer feels like doing it that day, because so much of it is up to officer discretion, right? Do they want to enforce that law today? Do they want to pick you up, or do they want to be nice to you?
Man, the default setting should be nice, folks. Be nice to people. If you're listening out there, don't be an asshole. We got enough of them around. Be a nice person, So our next little level we got is the criminal appeals and then the civil appeals, and those folks are only 5 of them per court. I think the proper term is appellate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're also elected statewide.
I think some of those are actually appointed positions. I want to say it's the governor gets to appoint like 3 people per court.
Okay. So 5 elected, and then we got some. Yeah, I think you're right. I think we learned that we were looking over some of that last time. So more appointees, and that's another thing, is all these elections are partisan elections. Republican or some other party or what have you. That's all do we got any libertarian judges yet?
I have not seen an election in our region where they have gotten more than 20%, but I think it's probably possible. They're definitely building up their base.
Yeah.
So selected through partisan elections for 6-year terms. And they're subject to the same restriction that they have to be younger than 70.
At least there's that, right? At least they can't be 70, right? We got a little bit of something going for us.
For now, there's a good chance that they'll attempt to change it once Roy Moore is physically unable to run or dearly departed.
It's written, that requirement is written in the Constitution. So it would require a constitutional amendment to change, which, who knows how that would go.
Oh, goodness. It says and you're not gonna get a misdemeanor up to the Court of Criminal Appeals. We're seeing felonies and stuff here as well.
Oh no, you can appeal misdemeanor cases.
You
So
can,
if
but you got to have grounds to survive that far.
right,
And money.
but
So once you reach an appellate level, you've got to have some kind of grounds like judicial misconduct or like a flaw in the legal theory and the legal reasoning that was used in the decision. There has to be something about the trial that you can point to, or new exculpatory evidence that you found.
Exculpatory. That's a fancy word. What's that word mean?
So evidence that proves your innocence. So that excludes you from consideration.
Gotcha.
Anything that might rule you out.
So, for example, let's say I had an incident that happened to me a while back that I'm fine, but essentially I'm coming back from a party up past Gadsden's metro area, so it's under a different legal jurisdiction under the sheriff's rather than the local police. Sheriff car follows me for like 10, 20 minutes until I hit the actual line where police jurisdiction takes over. If the sheriff had gone into the specifics of that jurisdiction and I was convicted on a broken taillight or something along those lines, because of that, one of the things I could say is, hey, this falls outside of his jurisdiction for the arrest, and that's something I could potentially appeal on. I'm not sure how effective it would have been, but that is like a potential legal thread to pull.
and the circuit courts do hear some appeals from the district level, but you can further appeal. Like, yeah, you could theoretically you could take a misdemeanor to the Court of Criminal Appeals.
The problem is, can you fund going after that appeal?
Yes, it would be a money issue, and like over a traffic infraction or over a misdemeanor, you may just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
So
circumstances.
I've read some statistic a while ago. I don't think we're going to be able to touch on federal courts today. Maybe just a touch on it. Where at federal level, they only bring like 3% of felonies to trial.
Most are
like
let
that.
out. Yes. And that's actually true even here at the state level and district level too. I would say definitely fewer than 3% of cases actually make it to trial.
And mostly that's like they're doing a plea deal or whatever, and people are just trying to get it done because they don't want to go through the pain of a trial, right?
Well, and most people are asking a really fundamental question, which is, how can I get out of jail the soonest?
Right.
And frequently, disturbingly, the answer is you accept a plea and you do less time, and then you get a guaranteed out date.
Yeah. But that's admitting guilt when you might not even be guilty. You just might say it just to arrest the process, so to speak.
We see that happen. And then I've actually seen judges reject those plea deals, like reject those pleas because they don't believe that the accused believes that they are guilty. So like it almost becomes this like
I think somebody's mic, their speaker is echoing. Sorry, you were saying, Tara?
It's almost like this game of like cat and mouse where like you feel toyed with because you're in that position, you want to plea so that you can get out as soon as possible. But if the judge is not satisfied that you really believe you are guilty, they can reject that plea. And we've seen it happen.
Wow. That's a whole nother level right there. So what if theoretically every person requests a trial by jury, no matter what the offense? What would happen to the court system?
It would probably slow down to a stop. That would be, I think, a pretty radical moment, actually, if there was that much solidarity among incarcerated people that we're all going to go for jury trials. We're not we're not equipped to deal with the volume of cases that we process judicially to actually do trials for every one of those. Most Alabama counties, districts only seat grand juries once every 6 months. So you're waiting a pretty significant period of time just to like get the beginnings of your trial started in a lot of cases. And we have seen people who protest their innocence and want to push for a trial can wait literal years in jail waiting for their trials. I've seen people who have been incarcerated waiting pre-trial for their trial to happen longer than they would have been sentenced for that charge.
Now, that's part of the danger of sitting there asking for the jury trial, which they know they can hold that up on you.
Well, and also protesting your innocence, right? Because if you've got a charge put on you and it's, this crime of moral turpitude, or it's something that lands you on a registry or limits your housing options, which felonies do, you have a lot of incentive to maintain your innocence.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you were talking about volume of cases. I was reading there's about 1.5 million cases a year. Now, if you look at the population of Alabama, there's only 5 million of us here. So, theoretically, within 5 years, everybody's caught a case, children included, right? Which is showing that maybe there's a lot of folks that are getting done up more than once a year or more than once every couple years.
I think it's Town Creek actually issued more citations than people who live in the county. And I think that was 2022 when AL.com did quite a lot of reporting about municipal revenue from fines and fees and issuing traffic citations. And Town Creek is one of the worst offenders, actually, because they will go after anybody. Many people who don't even live in the county, people who are just traveling and passing through.
Well, maybe they run into some of them sovereign citizens and have to deal with some of that. That'd be fun to watch.
They're not driving, they're traveling.
Yeah, exactly. I am traveling. Yeah, your ass is traveling to jail is where the hell you're traveling to.
Yeah, there's a town somewhere around Birmingham that recently got a lot of press coverage over its...
It's Brookside.
Brookside, yeah, that's what. Over its basically just naked, its police force just being a naked extortion racket.
It's grifters, man. That's what it is. This is just grifted. Respect the grift, y'all.
Yeah.
The problem is in some of these areas, that is what makes up their budget. That's how they make sure certain people get to go to school, certain people get to eat, which is terrifying. But also, in some cases, the ranking system for law enforcement sometimes includes, even though they say they don't, but includes potentially arrests that could be attributed to a certain person or certain officer.
Right, the quotas and good arrests and how many good arrests they have and all that good stuff. Does my head in thinking about all this. But right at the top, we got the last little set, and there's a couple other things I want to talk about real quick, but the Supreme Court of Alabama, and we got 9 justices, including the chief, and aren't these all elected as well?
Statewide elections, yes. Again, subject, no term limits, but you can't run after you're 70 years old. So the current Chief Justice, Tom Parker, turned 73.
Influential and is a Christian dominionist and all about manifest destiny.
Oh yeah. So when he ruled, he was the one that ruled against IVF here in Alabama, and in his opinion, he said like you can't, but that IVF embryos are extrauterine children, and that you can't destroy them without risking the wrath of a holy God, or words to that effect. So, like in his opinion, he's writing about theologically based decisions. So, but he can't he can't be part of the Supreme Court anymore. So, in the most recent election, there was an election for his seat, and one of the associate justices, Sarah Stewart, ran against the Democrat Greg Griffin and defeated him handily.
I want to say Sarah is actually like a protege of his.
It would not surprise me.
Of Parker's.
So, founding executive director of the Alabama Policy Institute, which is something we're going to have to talk about in a future.
Closely affiliated with the Eagle Forum.
Right.
Oh yeah, we
And
definitely got to
a
have
lot
you
of
back on.
legislation that has gotten used nationally.
Oh, well, look
Yeah.
at that.
There you go.
What do you know, folks? Alleged. I think that's how that's pronounced.
Distributing Confederate flags at a funeral of a Confederate widow. Attending a
The
party in
aforementioned-
Selma. Look at this a little bit down where he says he attended a party in Selma commemorating the birthday of Nathan Bedford Forrest. Wow. So he's going to be
Fort
out
Dixie.
in January.
So he's toast. We ain't got to worry about him no more.
Yeah.
Well, not exactly. He'll be hanging around.
Well, he won't be a judge anymore.
We got some more background microphone or speakers.
I was going to chime in and say that, yeah, he can't be a judge anymore, but he could just go straight back into seeing if he can't run for his local state legislature. Because, infinite terms on that one.
Oh, there we go. Some more of that. Ugh.
Well, he's a 7 mountain mandate guy. That's fun.
Yeah, which also Church of the Highlands is all bound up in.
Are you serious? I didn't know that.
See,
Wow.
listening to what I was saying, he's a Christian dominionist and believes in like the 7 domains and evangelicals exerting their influence in the 7 domains of like Western culture.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that in the future.
That sounds pretty un-American to me.
Well,
Oh, goodness.
so I don't know as
Mr.
much about Sarah Stewart.
Man,
She's going to be the
what a
new chief justice.
scumbag. What an alleged scumbag.
Alleged. He's an alleged scumbag.
Yeah. Make sure I don't get in trouble. So that's part of our Supreme Court. We're not going to go into the really any of the other personalities, but we should, and we probably will, just not right now.
I will say that in Alabama, I think 50 to 75% of your local municipal elections are up in 2025, and those will be the people that select your municipal judicial races. So not races, but your municipal judicial membership. So it may be something to look out for those who are in Alabama.
And then a lot of sheriffs are coming up at 26.
sheriffs in 26, and and to run your municipal elections, y'all, it's only $50-$100 to register to run in a municipal election. Start gathering your folks together, and y'all pick somebody and at least get one seat wherever you live. But yeah,
it also depends on. I was going to say it also depends on what you're running for, because, for example, city council, if I remember correctly, in Gadsden's only $50.
Yeah. I think Huntsville mayor was 75, maybe something like that. And our mayor, he nobody opposed him. I mean,
Yeah, so we didn't even have a mayoral election this year in Huntsville. The city council declared Tommy Battle the new mayor because he is the only one who registered. And I was looking at speaking of libertarian parties, their financial disclosures. They spent, I think it was like $350 fielding candidates for county commission this election season. And I was impressed. They did manage to contest every single commission seat.
Yeah, they're doing a little something. I don't know how much I agree on their. I prefer the.
I know exactly how much I agree with their platform.
I kind of it shows you don't need a lot of money to actually run people and be effective.
But I think I prefer like 1800s libertarians versus the new ones we got.
Yeah, it was originally a leftist word. Libertarian originally described people who were anarchists and anarchist adjacent. And the right-wing libertarians sort of appropriated the word, and now it refers only to them. Murray Rothbard wrote a book where he was, in part of it, bragging about how they had stolen the word from the left. If you know about Murray Rothbard.
Well, the only thing when I think of libertarians is anarcho-capitalists and lowering of or making sure everybody can have multiple child brides. So,
right, exactly. People who have strong opinions about age of consent laws.
Yeah.
Jason, do you remember one of our early Tennessee Valley Progressive Alliance meetings, and two guys from the local Libertarian Party started arguing with each other about what I believe?
Yes, I remember they like cornered you.
Yes, it was crazy.
Yeah, I remember. It was wild. It was a little bit creepy.
Not a party I am willing to support, but I am willing to look at their tactics and see what's working for them.
Right. They managed to do something the Democrats didn't manage to do, which was contest every seat in a county.
Which is, let's be honest, that's kind of wild, seeing how the chair of the entire state party is from that county.
Isn't the chair Randy Kelly now?
Yeah, he lives in Huntsville.
Yep.
He's a pastor in Huntsville. He sure is.
Man, that don't make no sense. So there's actually some other stuff we kind of didn't get to, like the court of the judiciary, which is, from what I can tell, it's basically the court for the judges.
Yes, it's kind of a world unto itself. So one way that we are kind of lucky and different is that we can impeach judges in Alabama. Not only that, but we have the court of the judiciary, which is there to regulate other judges.
By God, that gives me hope. Who's the last judge that got done up?
That's a good question.
There is a list on the Alabama, and I put this in the show notes. If you go to the Alabama legislature and our Alabama judicial.gov site, they got a list of judges and the cases they brought against them if you want to delve deeper. But there's some other things. Kind of the last little bit is we got a lot of special courts. There's veteran courts, there's drug courts, there's juvenile courts, there's family drug courts, there's family courts, there's adult drug courts, there's mental health courts. Did I miss any?
I would say most of these are actually not entirely separate courts, but are sub and specialty dockets that are maintained by those elected district, circuit, or municipal judges. So, for example, here in Huntsville, our municipal court has a veterans court, a drug court, an unhoused court. And those are specialized docket programs that people can choose to enroll in. Usually, it is contingent actually on pleading guilty to get your case put into those specialty courts. And then the theory is that you get other specialized support and resources. And sometimes if you complete these programs, then you will have that guilty plea expunged from your record.
Well, do they work?
Do they work? Actually, that's a great question, and nobody wants to answer it.
Hey, if we don't test, COVID doesn't exist, folks. We've been at it, y'all, for an hour and a half, and honestly, I could go for another hour and a half, but I'm not going to subject our views to it or to y'all, beautiful people, to it as well. I'm going to mention we got federal courts here, and maybe we get into that in another show, but there's 3 districts. It goes up to the 11th Circuit, and then from the 11th Circuit, that goes to the Supreme Court, right?
Correct.
So, and this is the big boy stuff. This is when the FBI.
Yeah. And these are all presidential appointees. So these judges are appointed by the president.
Yep.
And most of them in Alabama were appointed by Republican presidents. I think there's one Democrat.
There's one Democrat, and she's actually in the Northern District.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I did notice something else with these. If you look at when they're born, I think this is the youngest. Was put them at like 44, but where's is he not there? Is this a different one? Hold on. Yeah. Oh, former judges. Yeah, if you look, I mean, we don't. These folks, they stay there a long time once they get up to the federal level. A long time. And do these folks are they from Alabama?
They don't have to be, although in general the president will choose people who are from the state. But theoretically the president could appeal anybody they wanted. But they're given lists of people to appoint from
the Eagle Forum and the Alabama Policy Institute.
From the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah, from right-wing think tanks and from their advisors
and from the Federalist Society.
Yeah, and from the Federalist Society.
Man. Tahira, how are we going to get some lawyers? What's the plan, sister? What's the plan?
Part of me thinks if we wait for the lawyers to take care, it's too late. We got to build power now.
I love it. That's being proactive because, there might be some young whippersnappers out there. The only thing
I hate when that happens.
at whatever university where a lawyer, or maybe sit outside the bar examination rooms and give a spiel as they walk on out. But we do. There's some good lawyers out there that are fighting the good fight, but certainly seems to be like a 1% to 3% of lawyers type of situation doing that. It's definitely not even.
Well, and I think, you're going to have to find people who are willing to put their necks out a little bit, right? Like, as we've discussed, so much of the system is relationships based, and like decisions are predetermined before we ever get to elections. So if you are practicing in that system and you are like really putting yourself on the line, to challenge some of these seats, or to be willing to sue some of these agencies or take them to court, make them open up their records. So there's that piece of it too, right? I don't know that it's ever going to be like local attorneys getting together and deciding we care about justice actually. Although that's what I would like to see. I think, that's what the ethics of the profession ought to demand.
I seem to agree with you, liberty and justice for all, liberation system definitely does not lend itself for those objectives. And, I think we can certainly do better, and we're going to figure out how. Before we go, Robert, you got anything that's stuck in your craw, or anything that has got your eye right now?
I would say that people who want to get involved with your local, I'd say watch groups, your local party system, your local municipalities, because realistically over the next 3 or 4 years, if what you want to build is legal framework power, it's either playing with the big dogs of trying to actually pay for someone to go to school, which is highly unlikely, or start organizing around probate elections and municipal races to appoint local judges.
All right. Solid. Jason, what you got to say? Same question. What's stuck in your craw? What actions you got in mind? What do you think?
Google jury nullification and grand jury nullification as well. Like one of my dreams is to get on a grand jury, because ain't nobody going to jail if that happens, or ain't nobody getting indicted if that happens.
If there so happens to be anybody in New York watching this, please begin putting signage throughout the city for with the explanation of jury nullification. And I don't know, Tahira, can you explain that to the folks out there before we go?
Yeah, so juries have the power to decide that they are going to nullify a charge, right? They can choose. Oh, here, I'm going to just look up the official.
Hey, we like official definitions. I spend much time on etymology.com.
A jury returns a verdict of not guilty, even if they believe that the criteria for a guilty plea guilty charge has been reached.
Yeah. You'll hear that, folks.
So if you can decide, like, hey, yeah, this person did marijuana trafficking, but what is the big deal about that?
Right. And if you get on a grand jury where you get to decide where multiple people are indicted for crimes or not, you can also exercise your power there. Because there's a huge problem in this country where prosecutors can get juries to, the joke is they can get juries to indict a ham sandwich if they wanted to. And I think that needs to change. And we need to encourage people to stop indicting people when it's a petty pot offense, like let the guy go. Just make it impossible to enforce some of these crimes.
So we need jurists to enact or exercise their jury nullification powers, and we need people getting arrested to be requesting jury trials, and then problem solved. Right?
Well, we could also petition the officers to stop arresting people. We can elect sheriffs who will say we're actually not accepting arrestees into our jail anymore. We have creative avenues at our disposal too.
Well, I think I would. You got any more before we go? Because this is what we're all about. We need people to take action and think creatively and understand that there's a different way out there than what it is, and that we can make a better world. We just first need to imagine it and understand the things at our disposal. So what else we got?
Support your local bail fund.
Oh, I'm beside myself. hsvbailfund.org.
That's us.
I hope I spelled bail fund correctly.
That's correct. That's us.
So you can donate there, folks, and ask, hey, what do I want for Christmas? I want the only bail fund in the state to get stronger. And we can help make that happen, folks. So if you got $5, y'all got a subscription system? Everybody's got a subscription or monthly dues.
Well,
or is it all just kind of one-time stuff right now?
We do have an option for setting up monthly recurring donations on our website. I'm hoping that we're actually going to rehaul our membership system in 2025 to give y'all a better experience, those of us who do sustain the fund. And I can tell you, even if it is just $5, if you can afford to donate regularly, it makes such a huge difference to small, scrappy organizations like ours. Like, that's the difference between the web hosting is paid or not. Those are real costs, and those small gestures really help support and sustain the work.
And what about if they're interested in starting a bail fund in their area? Can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, either reach out through our website, or I am available on most platforms. Tiny Detail Check. Get in touch. We are happy to support. We've put toolkits together before, and we want this work to be supported. And
your next big step is you said y'all are trying to expand your I want to say viewership. That's the wrong word. You expanded the observation program at the municipal courts.
Yeah, so look out, early 2025, we should start announcing some volunteer trainings for that. And then we're also going to be launching another Hello for the Holidays campaign. These are our phone time campaigns where we provide phone time to people who are locked up in jail. We are actually hoping to go for Mother's Day and Father's Day this year, supporting all the parents in jail.
Outstanding. Well, bless you for what you do and all the folks that you work with. I think we got one of them's a member of DSA. You're welcome to join us as well. And all y'all listening, y'all, have I said like and subscribe and all that good stuff? Please do that. But solidarity forever, y'all. All the power to all the people together. Y'all have a good night. Y'all have a Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Be safe. And hey, maybe start a brake light clinic while you're at it. Thank y'all.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. We're going to have you on again. and we will see y'all, folks.
All right. Thanks, y'all.